Since I am Greek myself, I have had the joy of seeing the Parthenon with my own eyes. It goes without saying that this structure is one of the most outstanding and mind-blowing pieces of ancient architecture ever created during the course of history. This is a moment I will never forget due to the overwhelming sense of shock. To think, all those years ago, without any slight pieces of advanced technology, the Greeks built the structure up in such a meticulous manner. I am proud that my descendants goes all the way back to that time with their immense breakthroughs of architecture, art, and so much more. Greek art is truly fascinating and unlike any other. From the mythological structures, intense mathematics, and precisely built architecture, the Greeks really can do it all. The Parthenon is one of the most significant structures that still stands today in ancient Greek history. The Parthenon sits on the Acropolis in Athens and was built during the Golden Age of Greece, specifically from approximately 447 BC to 432 BC. The breathtaking structure features 8 large columns from the front to back, as well as 17 columns on either side. The Golden Age in Greece, or also known as the Age of Pericles, after the Athenian statesman at the time, was the ancient peak of Greek construction, culture, power, wealth, and much more. Athens at this time contributed to so many different upbringings in mathematics, science, innovations, discoveries, and much more. The Greco-Persian Wars and Peloponnese Wars were enormous factors leading up to the construction of the Parthenon that cannot be skipped over. The Persian Empire was extremely powerful, large, and influential during the 4th and 5th century BCE. They were advanced in aspects such as taxes, finances, infrastructure, and hierarchy. Greece during the same period and moving forward were known to be advanced in philosophy, literature, democracy, and more. Greece was arranged into city-states that each ran their own democracy and a hierarchy at the time. Between 490 and 480 BCE, Persians declared war on these Greek city-states. This war featured the Battle of Thermopylae and the Battle of Marathon. Persia began the initial war due to Athens supporting the Ionian Greeks during their rebellion in Anatolia towards the Persian Empire. Xerxes, the Persian king, did not stand for this, therefore started the Persian Wars, or known as the Greco-Persian Wars. During this time, the Greek city-states grouped together and formed themselves all as Greeks, opposed to just their specific city-states, such as Athenians. This was known as the Delian League and transformed the empire entirely. Greece wouldn't even be close to what it is today without the Delian League and the alliance that it formed. The Golden Age began shortly after this revolutionary event, and Athens emerged as the capital of Greece. Pericles was known as a significant leader during this era and allowed the empire to advance in many different aspects over the years. The Greeks ended up winning this war. Later came the Peloponnese War, which lasted for approximately 30 years between the Athenians and the Spartans. Pericles led Athens in this war. This significant war arose since the Spartans did not believe in democracy, but instead in kingship. The Athenians saw an issue with this way of running the city-state since it involved the brutal mistreatment of hundreds of enslaved people. During one point of the war, the Athenians traveled to the Spartans on the land of Milos, and as quoted in the piece of History of the Peloponnese War by the Greek historian Theodostes, the Athenians stated, "The strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must." This was stated as the Athenians attempted to conquer the land and win against the Spartans. It is often seen as one of the first events of realism in ancient history. It also demonstrates how neither side of the war were better than the other in any way. After the Melians declined participating in the war, the Athenians brutally killed all of the men, and as well as enslaving all the women and the children. Prior to these wars, on the Acropolis sat an earlier version of the Parthenon. It was being built as a tribute to the goddess Athena and was meant to serve as a temple. When the Persian War began, the old Parthenon was destroyed, along with the rest of the city. However, after beating Persia, Athens gained confidence, as well as a sense of dignity. So much so that once the city was at a more peaceful point, they rebuilt the structure that we know of today. The wars paved the way for this powerful architecture, since the Greeks felt motivation to honor their gods after their victory. The Delian League was able to allow Greece to run their alliance as an empire and collect money in an efficient way that gave enough wealth and political power to go through with this construction. The Parthenon, which was constructed after the victory of the Greco-Persia Wars and the aftermath of the Peloponnese War, was created thanks to the Delian League, motivation, and praise to their gods for allowing them to come this far. It was a symbol of tribute to Athena in forms of a temple, as well as sign of accomplishment, dominance, and democracy that lived inside the Greek Empire. Under the leadership of Pericles, the Greeks were able to collect funds created from the alliance and slowly begin to utilize it to rebuild their empire after the devastating repercussions of the Greco-Persian War. These funds contributed to an immense amount of different structures, buildings, art pieces, and much more to allow Greece to excel as an empire, starting quite literally from scratch. The Parthenon, dedicated to Athena Parthenos, was designed by Ictinos and Callicrates, as well as the sculptor Phidias. This massive structure symbolized by the Greek religious devotion and power within Athens. It also served as a display of the Greeks' advanced engineering skills and artistic precision. In the book, titled The Parthenon and Liberal Education by Geoff Leeman and Michael Weinman, gives particular examples on how specific mathematical Greek discoveries that allowed the builders of the Parthenon to be so precise and careful with every step in their engineering process. In Chapter 1, the following is stated: "We believe that the ultimate relevance of this number is that the ratio 729 to 512 is an excellent approximation of the ratio 2:1. That is, viewed with respect to harmonics, 729 is the best number to work with to show that closing the circle of the musical scale is impossible without introducing irrational numbers, which is precisely what was ruled out by the commitments, ontological rather than formal, of the Pythagorean harmonists who built the scale with which Plato is working here." If so, we are faced with a question quite relevant for our overarching interpretive concerns. Why did Plato leave this out? Our suggestion is that by doing so, he inscribes into the dialogue the incompleteness that integral to the process of dialect. This brings us to our suggestion for how we ought to understand the relationship between philosophy and mathematics. These few sentences provide insight into just how mathematically advanced the Greeks were for their time. They had revolutionary thought processes on every aspect of construction and precision. This specific idea was brought to life by Plato, a famous ancient Greek philosopher. Another idea utilized in the construction of the Parthenon was the golden ratio. This was a very intentional component that contributed to the aesthetically pleasing structure of the Parthenon. The composition of the architecture appeared symmetrical due to the specific dimensions. Within the column, there was a slight bulge, known as entasis, that countered the illusion of concavity. This allowed for the columns to appear straight to the viewer. The base of the structure, where the columns stand, has a slight curve to provide the illusion of exact horizontality. These aspects demonstrate how the Greeks worked meticulously to achieve perfect visual please and their mastery of proportion. The space and scale of the Parthenon was a key component that makes it so extraordinary. Seeing it in person truly blew me away due to the immense size of it. It was, without a doubt, the largest ancient structure I have ever seen. When visiting it, I was able to gather that it measures 228 feet in length and 101 feet in width. The scale is impressive to viewers and gives them a larger perspective of the power of ancient Greeks. The clever positioning of the Parthenon located on the Acropolis makes it visible from all points of the city, reflecting pride and its spiritual symbolism. The space inside the structure is divided into two sections, the Naos as well as the Opisthodomos. The Naos holds a large gold and ivory statue of Athena Parthenos, crafted by its sculptor Phidias. The Opisthodomos was known to be a chamber that housed the city's wealth. The color of the structure was a factor that deeply contributed to the visual impact of it all. Today, the color has faded into an off-white marble tone. However, back in its glory days, it featured reds, blues, golds, and polychromy. Originally made from a limestone foundation and marble, the colors presented a new light to the architecture. The colors enhanced the story-like aspect of the Parthenon and emphasized its critical features, such as the statue of Athena that served as a focal point. These colors were rich and imposed a large sense of wealth to the city, as well as adding emotional and spiritual aspects to it all. It served as a place of worship to the divine gods of the Greeks. They were deeply religious, and this helped spread religion all across the empire. The novel Key Buildings from Prehistory to the Present, Plans, Sections, and Elevations, written by Andrew Baliantine, explains the religious aspect of the structure and how it was used to effectively connect with their gods. The following excerpt demonstrates how typical and religious ceremonies at the Parthenon would go. Worship involved making sacrifices at an altar in the open air in sight of the statue, so that the god could witness the proceedings. The slaughtered animals, typically cattle, would be cooked at the sanctuary and eaten there by men. Women were involved in some ceremonies, but respectable women always ate separately from the men. Very little meat would be eaten by any citizen except on these occasions. Sanctuaries would have stoas with a row of dining rooms leading off a colonnade. But at the Acropolis of Athens, none of these survive. The Parthenon wouldn't have been the Parthenon without the optical illusion of perfectly straight lines. Yes, that's correct. The Parthenon doesn't actually have any straight lines occupying the columns, despite seeming to look like it. This is another example of the Greeks' careful and intellectual view on how to correctly assemble the structure in such a perfect format to the viewer. The both horizontal and vertical lines symbolize a sense of order and stability within the ancient empire. This factor was commonly used in Greek art and architecture. The lines appear clean and precise. There are subtle refinements in texture in the lines to give the illusion of straightness and counter the fact of the columns leaning slightly inward as well as being slightly curved. These elements are known as metopes, frieze, and pediments. The dynamic of all this variation going on truly brings the structure to life, with the components of light and shadow. Ultimately, the Parthenon, built from the motivation of rebuilding the empire after the destruction resulting from war, serves as a main point of the country and an aspect that demonstrates the strengths of the Greeks. The mathematical, physiological, intellectual, and engineering components that go into the construction of the Parthenon make it the breathtaking piece that it is. It overall reflects the wealth, strength, ambition, and identity of Athens as a whole. While the structure serves primarily as a religious house, it also represents political power over the West. When the Parthenon came about, it was unlike anything seen before due to all the architectural aspects that went into the building of it, stated previously. It expressed Athenian supremacy and imposed a slight threat and tension to those in the West. It was slightly a sign of "don't mess with us" to any empire with violent ambitions towards the Greeks. After the significant war with Persia, the Parthenon is easily seen as a totem of victory and triumph over them, to, in a way, rub the wind in their face after the war that they started. The Parthenon left a lasting effect on not only Greek history, but really world history as a whole. It completely altered the way that Greece was viewed during the time and allowed researchers to focus more closely on their ethics, beliefs, morals, and just about every concept of their empire. Their architectural pieces were used as inspiration all over the West and were spread to many areas. The legacy contributed to neoclassical designs and democratic symbolism. Beauty and power truly intersected in Greek society, and the Parthenon is the most perfect example of it.